So, several of you have been asking me for some free-to-play friendly decks. So not absolute beginner decks, but not like, stuffed with like legendaries and stuff. The first thing I'll say about Warpforge is like I've been in like the top 10 last 2 seasons, and you can't expect to play in that level without like top decks, right? Like that is obviously competing at the top end of the game. So as long as you kind of like go into it with that understanding, the decks that I'm going to show you today, I'm very confident you will hit legendary. You can hit legendary with. I'm willing to make that promise. So let's take a look. I've got 5 decks to show you. So depending on what your favorite faction is, if you like this kind of thing, I can do more of these types of decks as well. So the first one I want to talk about is a Chaos deck, and it's Galaron the Pious. Now, what you'll find in this deck is that there aren't any legendary cards at all. So that's the first thing in terms of it being free to play friendly. It has got some epic cards in, but what I've done with this series is I've only included like what I would consider to be absolute core essential epics, and then tried to make most of the deck up from rares and common cards. Alright, so let's take a look at this deck. So essentially what we've got is a relatively low to the ground, nice kind of tempo curve type of deck, and it's got some really good combos in for win conditions. So it's got things like Legacy of Vengeance if our opponent goes wide. It's got Murderous Desires, so we can strike twice. That is one of the epics. That's why we only have a single copy of it. And then we've also got things like Demonic Frenzy, which we play Schemes of Fate as well. So this basically means that we can build a giant unit essentially to end the game, or we can hit twice with Murderous Desires and Lord. So there's like a few different combos in here. So this is all pretty powerful stuff for a free-to-play deck. This can get you very, very far and be very powerful in the meta. You've got things like your Malicious Volleys to kind of remove early game or to stun things to hold them up, similar with your Traitor's Hates. Again, you'll notice the rarity. These are sort of rare and common cards, okay? Host of Chaos is what's going to allow you to draw through the deck. And for every troop that you draw, it's also going to give you a free Abaddon's Chosen. Okay, more on that later. You really want to be trying to hit your Venom Crawler. We have got one epic Venom Crawler in here because, again, it's just such a good card. But I think having that at the top end of your deck is worth investing in. It should probably be one of the first epics you get as a Chaos player. As I said, the Schemes of Fate allows you to kind of like hide something that you've buffed already and put Chosen on, and that really sets up that Demonic Frenzy combo the very next turn. We've got things like Possessed Marine for early removal, and of course a copy of Spawned as early removal as well. We've got the Vet Legendaries, one of the best common cards. 3 drops in the game for sure. Really great stats this is exactly what you want to be seeing at the 3 drop stage. It's a proactive drop. Then we've got a couple of Chosen. Again, these are common cards, absolutely brilliant, one of the best 4 drop cards, and just gives you that flexibility. You often want to go with the Camouflage for the +2 health. Now the Adulterous Despoilers is an excellent card in a Galaron deck. Basically, once you play this, that basically means that every single troop your opponent then plays is going to have vulnerable, and that means it's going to trigger Galaron's passive ability, which says when an enemy with vulnerable dies, heal 1. So basically your Warlord gets healed the second you kind of play this card. So great synergy, and again only a rare card. We've got the Warp Talons, which are one of your main setups for your win cons. Again, only a rare card, coming in with stealth and that mega stat line there with the 6. Of course, you're going to look to sort of put your buffs on there, maybe get your Demonic Frenzy off or Murderous Desires, and it could be game over. Bringer of Decay, just to kind of make the opponent vulnerable. Again, this is only a rare card, so 2 copies of these, making things like your Volleys and your Traitorous Hates do more damage as well. And not to mention your double Helldrake Strikes, which are only rares. Now, the Sorcerer got recently buffed. This is a great card. We can afford to run 2 of these, as well as the Bringer of Decay in here. And then we already talked about the Venom Crawler, so rounding out, we've got a single Havoc, which again, the Havoc's a really good card in Galaron. I wouldn't really run this card in the other Warlords, but in Galaron it's excellent because that 4 damage obviously can be combined with Spoilers would make it 5 damage, or if Galaron uses his Litany of Despair and gives vulnerable 2 to something, then that Havoc is potentially doing 6 to 7 damage on the turn that it lands, which is a superb tempo swing. So you can play around a little bit with the numbers, but overall this is a really powerful free-to-play Chaos deck that would easily climb to Legendary right now. I think you could probably push this one a bit higher. Alrighty, next up we've got the Ultramarines. Now, the biggest challenge with the Ultramarines is that I've got Uriel on here, but honestly, if you were going to invest, or if you managed to open one of the Warlords, the problem with the Ultramarines, a lot of the Warlords are legendaries. But obviously, if you are able to open Varro, then this deck would work just as well with Varro, to be honest. But I built it with Uriel just because Uriel's not bad as a free-to-play Warlord. The basic deck is one that is, let's have a look. We've got the double firstborn for your early game and the scout bike, so you've kind of got a proactive turn. Obviously, you've got the Uriel's ability, which can help clear board and go wide boards, as well as your point blank shots. Devastator Doctrine, I mean, again, you play this and Uriel's power, and that essentially means you can be dealing essentially 4 blast to something, or you can use his power to remove shields and then do the blast, so it's quite a nice combination. The Intercessor Sergeant is a really solid 3-drop on proactive, and then you've got things like the Inceptor for the kind of flank and the reactive. Proactive on the 4-drops, you've got the Honor Guards and the Landspeeders, really good statted 4-drops that are perfectly easy to just drop proactively. So this is really nice kind of board building deck. You've got the Storm Raven to help you if you get a bit behind. Another really great proactive deck card. I think this card's excellent. Now it's received a numerous bonuses, and for a common card, it's really great. The stats are superb on that, and your opponent will panic, and like that sort of body is usually better than most 5e bodies. So at that stage of the game, if you play it on 5, it's really good. Got a single hard removal in there. We've got the Invicta Warsuits, which again, they're a common card, but they've recently received a buff, so these are absolutely excellent. And to be honest, they're kind of like becoming the best 5-drop in the meta decks now as well. So I really think that this is a steal in a free-to-play deck. And the Inceptor Sergeants, they were once better with the stats, but they're still very, very decent. They still do the kind of job you need them to do at that kind of 6e stage of the game. Okay, so getting into the late game, I've gone for double Storm Talon. For a common card, this card is super powerful. It's a flyer. Your opponent's going to have to trade into the 6, and you guarantee that the 3 damage hits a troop. It's not just, if it said random enemy, it could hit the Warlord, but when you need to remove and clear the board, this is the card for it. Now we have got 2 copies of the Assault Doctrine, and you'll notice this is one of the only epic cards. This is very cheap to build this deck, but the Assault Doctrine is just so good. It just gives you that finisher for this deck. And I even went and chucked in an Executioner. This is a bit of a flavor card. It's a very good card. It's just that it's very late game. The thinking here is that free-to-play deck is that if someone does survive your kind of curve stuff, it just gives you, between that and the Doctrine, it just gives you an alternative way of winning the game at the end. So like I said, guys, like this deck is very, very good because it literally only runs, I believe, the the Assault Doctrine as an epic. If you wanted to switch it up and put Agarius in as another epic, if you've got the spare wildcard, you could do that as well. Alright, next up we have got Ursula Creed. Now, I actually have a video series on my channel called Beginner to Legendary, free to play, so go and watch that, where I actually climbed with an Astra Militarum free to play account from scratch and climbed all the way up to Legendary. And honestly, the deck wasn't too far different to what I'm showing you here. So if you want like lots of gameplay evidence of this, go and watch some of that series. Guys, Ursula duty gives you an insane out of the blocks tempo start, right? If she plays a shock trooper, let's imagine that you're going second. Your defense card, your first defense card, allows you to play a shock trooper for free. So that means that you can play a shock trooper from Creed, a shock trooper from the defense card, and then if you've got something like a Fairburn, you can play that often into... I've seen people have double Fairburns, so they play each of them until like a medic or a rattling, and you can play 2 vanquishers and a medic, plus your 2 shock troopers. You can end up with a stupid board on turn 1. So the ability to get out of the blocks with multiple troops already down is phenomenal with this deck, and it just builds from there. Whether it's the rattlings or the cassequins helping you to clear out early, you've got the autocannons which just grow every time you attack with the range attack from regiment, and that ability we try to make good use of in the things like the armored sentinels. Has the same thing as well, so that can really get carried away. Now we do have some Ogrines which are pretty good stat of 3 drops, give you a bit of vanguard to protect your units. A single copy of Summer Execution I think is good, because you've got lots of little troops in this deck. So basically there will come a point in the game potentially where, you know, you'll have a small body, you'll hit Warlord, it'll be down to 1 health, and then you Summer Execution it to kill something big. Very, very cheap as well. Double Outlaw Rough Riders, these are just phenomenal in here. We don't run Cadia Stand, so there's no anti-synergy, so that means that these things often can come on and do like a double attack, which is a really great flanking ability. The Cadian Standard Bearer just puts out ridiculous stats. You get something like 8 health because 2 bodies, so definitely should be one of the first epics that you craft. I think you know, you can survive without it, but the deck gets a lot better when you get those guys in there. The basic cards though, the Scout Sentinels, they're perfectly legit to play as a beginner deck. Already talked about this. I actually really underrated this card when it first came out, but in this type of deck this card is ridiculously good, and it gets massive. I've had this card with like 15 damage, so don't be surprised if you get it. Then we got the Boneheads. Again, as you're growing up with this curve, then suddenly dropping a Bonehead on 5, yeah, just really stuffy, really beefy kind of like dude, just pretty hard to get rid of, protecting your other troops, and if he does survive, obviously getting that blast too is really nice. Also the Primus Psyker is very, very nice. I prefer the Psyker in Denkler just because being able to like flank attack with this thing when it's got shield is superb, but I still think like you can get away with 1 copy in Creed, and it just means that we fill out that early curve with 5/5 drops. Now if you don't want the Psyker in Creed, you could always drop it and put a second one of these in, which is a Chimera. This card is fantastic. It's just recently had a slight buff to its range attack, and it is a common card, and it's absolutely superb. You definitely want to try and get that duty off if you can. Now to finish the game, we've got the Lehman Russes, because these only make sense when you've got so many troops that you've been playing as like low to the ground. So you've built this board, and then you can kind of like just get multiple attacks off, triggering the Lehman Russ to deal extra damage. I think it's a super powerful ability. And then you've got the Lehman Russ Vanquisher. Now this card is in here because what I found is that in games where your opponent can keep up with your curve and they can kind of remove, I just needed something to just push me over the edge, and the threat of the Vanquisher is really there, because like it's a big beefy tank and you're playing it on 8. It's not the end game, but it's really difficult for your opponent to get rid of, and then if they don't, you can actually just basically use your duty to deal 8 damage and not have to attack, meaning you don't sacrifice any health, and then they have to kind of attack into this kind of beef again to try and clear it. So I actually think having one of those makes quite a big difference. So there you go guys, another free to play really friendly deck. I don't think there was any, well there's no legendaries in there, and I think the Standard Bearer might have been the only thing that was epic. So yeah, very cheap apart from Ursula to play deck. Next up we have got my Omesos. Now if you go back just a couple of months ago, you'll see I posted a really high score with Omesos, and what this is kind of like the free-to-play version of that. So what you basically got here is Omesos, who obviously can generate drones every turn, and what we're doing is we are paying for, has it gone? Things like... Ah, there we are, Piranha. Yeah, Piranhas can make your guys cost less, so you can kind of like spit your drones out quicker. You want to get like things like your stealth drone combined with a DS8, but you just look down this curve and you look at all these. These are all like just normal cards, guys. These are all like basic cards. So The Tower, one of the factions I think that have a really nice beginner kind of potential, because some powerful cards that are low rarity. Also, we've got priority target because this just basically gives us win cons, right? We can stick this on the enemy warlord once we've gone wide, and then we've kind of got finishers. In the late game, we've got things like flanking things off the Devilfish, for example. You've got things like the Lone Spear, and Persian Empire is going to, single copy of that's just going to basically make sure that you draw through your deck as you get towards that late curve and you kind of run out of stuff. Okay, and last but not least, we're looking at the GSC. Now, this deck, guys, is a superb free-to-play friendly deck. I think you could put up a 3k score with this deck. What are you trying to do? You're trying to essentially survive to turn 6. And what I've done, I've included one legendary in this deck, and it's this card, because it really does add so much. So of all the decks, I think this is the only one I've put a legendary. Obviously, if you haven't got a legendary card, you can't play this. You can't play this particular card, and that's fine. The deck will still work without it. It's just that it adds so much when you do get it. Because what you can do is on E6, we're going to go off and combo where we're going to play the Metamorph Leader, and we're going to play all our 1-drops. So the idea is not to play any of your 1-drop units, and then you're just going to play all your 1-drop troops when your Metamorph Leader comes down. And what that does is it allows you to flood the board. They all get big because of the leader's uprising ability, and then if you've got the idle defense card, you can play that to gain 1 more energy, and that's where you stick the perfect ambush on the leader so that the leader is immune, and this guy will have like 12 attack at that point as well. Now, how do we get more 1-drops, you might say? Well, that's where our second epic card, the Neophyte Icon Bearer, comes in. We're going to play this essentially when we've got 2 units down the board. Remember, our warlord is 1 unit, you just need 1 other unit, and then you can attack, drop this guy and attack with those, and that's how you basically generate more 1-drops, which you save for the Metamorph Leader. Now, things like Summon the Cult are going to be able to put extra bodies down to support you to do that. It's going to put 2 2-drops down. Could also get access to an epic 2-drop in there, which has some nice combinations with Sabotage, if you from your backstabs or your clandestines, for example. But very low to the ground troops to help you in the early game to survive to get to turn 6, to try and put some sabotages in so that he kind of has to wait his turn to kind of get rid of that. And then when that combo goes off, you've obviously got flank from your Genestealer Familiar, and it's really, really powerful, guys. It's a really, really powerful uprising free-to-play friendly deck. So yeah, check it out. So there you go, guys. That is 5, I believe. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 free-to-play friendly decks that you could hit the road with right now. Let me know in the comments which one you like best or how you get on with them. And also, if you want to see more kind of free-to-play friendly content, give us a shout in comments. Hit that like button and subscribe, and appreciate all the support, guys. Until the next one.